From the moment the Cleveland Browns opened their gates for training camp, the air felt charged, like the first crack of lightning before a summer storm. Fans poured in, expecting a slow build, a polite shuffle between veterans and rookies, a day of note-taking for coaches and beat reporters. Instead, they got a jolt straight to the heart of the quarterback competition, and it came from the one man almost nobody thought would own the day, Shadore Sanders. Listed as QB4, the so-called developmental project, the fifth rounder drafted behind safer, more NFL-ready names, Sanders didn't just step onto the grass, he changed the entire temperature of the facility. This was supposed to be Joe Flacco's stage to show he could still command a huddle. It was supposed to be Kenny Pickett's chance to prove he deserved another shot. It was supposed to be Dillon Gabriel's proving ground to show the third-round investment was worth it. But by the time the first set of drills ended, none of those names mattered. It was Sanders camp now, and the crowd knew it. His first warm-up throws weren't just completions. They were statements. Tight spirals, no wasted motion, balls delivered with a snap and thud that echoed against receivers' gloves. Fans started murmuring, then cheering, and then outright chanting his name. And we're talking before the 11-on-11s even began. When the drills did kick off, Sanders turned them into a personal highlight reel. Precision slants that hit in stride, out routes timed so perfectly, defenders barely had a chance to turn their heads. Intermediate crosses that threaded through tight windows without hesitation. And while Shadore was turning the field into a stage, Gabriel was struggling to find his rhythm. A high throw here, a mistimed release there, and worst of all, a wobbling out route that left fans shaking their heads in confusion. Gabriel didn't look lost, but he looked like he was chasing the moment, not owning it. That's the difference between a quarterback trying to make the roster and a quarterback trying to lead one. Sanders walked onto that field with something bigger than just mechanics. He carried himself like he belonged. And every rep drove that point deeper into the minds of fans, coaches, and teammates alike. This wasn't supposed to happen. On paper, this was the year to hide him behind experience, let him watch and learn, keep him away from the weight of expectation. But the grass doesn't care about paper, the tape doesn't lie, and in front of a full crowd, every throw is a referendum on whether you're the guy or just another guy. Gabriel was given the inside track for every reason you've heard before. Fit, intangibles, supposed faster learning curve. But when the ball was snapped and the pass had to be made, those intangibles turned into excuses. Gabriel's rhythm was shaky. His processing was just a tick slow. His throws didn't command the same authority. Sanders, on the other hand, was decisive, fearless, and precise. He wasn't taking the safe check down unless it was the right read. He was pushing the ball downfield and doing it with the kind of anticipation you can't fake. By the end of the first session, the contrast was impossible to ignore. And yet, if you listened to the media coverage after practice, you'd think this was just another day. Tony Gracie went on air saying the Browns are playing the long game with Sanders, that he's part of a 4-year plan, that Gabriel will develop faster because he was drafted higher. The mental gymnastics were almost impressive. Because anyone who actually watched that practice knows those takes don't survive contact with reality. Gabriel wasn't just trailing Sanders, he was already in the rearview mirror, and yet, this is how the league works. Draft position buys you patience. Being a perceived safe pick buys you excuses. Confidence and leadership that doesn't come packaged in corporate sanitized humility. That gets you labeled cocky, risky, or needing time to mature. But the crowd isn't buying it. They saw the timing, the velocity, the way Sanders commanded his huddle. They saw his receivers reacting differently to him, sharper in and out of their breaks, looking back for the ball with expectation. They saw a quarterback whose presence raised the energy of the entire offense. And when the Browns rotated Gabriel back in, the mood shifted, the tempo slowed, the buzz quieted. The difference was so stark it felt like watching two entirely different offenses. That's the thing about a true quarterback battle. It's not just about who executes the playbook, it's about who makes the playbook come alive. And on day one, Sanders didn't just run the offense, he owned it. Inside the building, players are already talking. Rookies are gravitating to him during warm-ups. Second-year wideouts are pulling him aside to run extra timing routes. Even veterans, quietly, carefully, are watching with interest. Because in an NFL locker room, you can't hide talent. Rewind the clock to draft night, and you'll see why this battle was loaded before the first snap of training camp. Shadore Sanders, armed with over 4,100 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, and the highest sack total endured in Power 5 football, should have been celebrated as a first-round talent. Instead, he slipped all the way to the 5th round. Not because of the tape, not because of the measurables, but because Shedeur didn't fit the mold NFL front offices like to control. He came into interviews with his own brand, his own media presence, and a confidence that wasn't asking for permission. To executives who live in a world of hierarchy and obedience, that was unnerving. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel, shorter, less productive, untested behind a broken offensive line, went 2 rounds earlier. Why? Because he fit the checklist. Coachable. Safe. The kind of guy who would blend into the background and follow the script. In other words, predictable. But the league has a cruel way of exposing those illusions. Day 1 of Brown's camp ripped the comfort blanket off this front office. They wanted to stash Sanders away as QB4, keep him out of the spotlight, and pretend this was a long-term investment. But you can't hide a quarterback who walks into his first official NFL practice and immediately looks like the most prepared passer on the field. The moment the drills shifted to red zone work, the entire depth chart dynamic shifted with them. Sanders was surgical, anticipating breaks, putting the ball where only his receiver could get it, throwing fades with just the right arc to drop over the defender's shoulder. Each throw was a clinic in timing and poise, and the crowd fed off it. QB1, QB1, echoed through the stands. Gabriel stepped in after him, and it was like someone had cut the wires to the sound system. The energy flatlined. Short completions, slow reads, the occasional hesitation that turned a would-be strike into a contested incompletion. He wasn't melting down, but he wasn't inspiring belief. And in a quarterback competition, that's worse. Because if you're not taking steps forward, you're losing ground to the guy who is. And Sanders was sprinting. Now here's where the politics get messy. Publicly, the Browns say it's a process. They talk about development. They talk about reps. They talk about giving young players time. But inside NFL buildings, time is rarely a neutral word. Time is a shield, something used to protect the guy you've already invested more in, not necessarily the guy who's performing better. Coaches and executives will tell you it's about giving a player the best chance to succeed, but in reality, it's often about giving themselves the best chance not to be proven wrong too soon. And right now, Dillon Gabriel is the player they're protecting. Think about how dangerous that is for team chemistry. You've got rookies whispering about who should be getting more reps. You've got veterans, many in the final years of their own careers, who want to win now, not in some hypothetical future window the front office is clinging to. You've got a fan base that just spent the afternoon chanting for the guy the coaches are treating like an afterthought. That gap between what's happening on the field and what's happening on the depth chart, that's where distrust grows, and distrust spreads fast. The Browns can say whatever they want in press conferences, but the locker room will make up its own mind. And by the end of day 1, plenty of people wearing orange and brown had already decided Shadore Sanders wasn't just in this quarterback competition. He was winning it. But here's the part the media won't say out loud. This isn't just about on-field performance. This is about narrative control. NFL franchises love a story they can manage, one where the hero is someone they chose, groomed, and elevated according to their own timeline. Sanders isn't their creation. He's an outsider who walked in with his own momentum, his own fan base, his own gravitational pull, and that scares them. Because if Sanders keeps stacking days like this, they don't get to roll him out on their terms. The city will demand it. The locker room will demand it. And that means the team's decision-makers will have to admit they were wrong about the timeline, and maybe even the draft board itself. Off the field, Sanders is already building the kind of credibility no practice rep can buy. Weeks before camp opened, he skipped the glitz of the Espoirs to host a fundraiser for families displaced by the Rainbow Terrace apartment fire. No NFL cameras, no orchestrated PR campaign, just a young quarterback using his platform to serve the city he now represents. He coordinated donations, he handed out meals, he put his own money into making sure families had what they needed. And when the kids left that event with food in their hands and smiles on their faces, they didn't care what the depth chart said. To them, Sanders was already the quarterback of Cleveland.